Okay, we're recording. So I brought Jack from Stormblessed Miniatures onto the call today. I felt like we needed to have something for people to listen to while they're painting their miniatures, their Stormlight miniatures. Jack, you're the man behind Stormblessed Miniatures, and I found you on Instagram probably, I don't know, about a year ago or something like that. Loved your work, and you've been taking fantastic
Thank
photos
you.
of your wonderfully painted miniatures. And you're an active member on my community on the Discord server and have some mad painting skills. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Good to be here.
So, Jack, can you? I have a slew of questions that we'll be going through today, but I wanted to kind of start out with an intro from you. Can you tell me more about yourself, such as where you're calling in from right now and why you started posting your miniatures online?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. As Josh said, my name's Jack. My Instagram page is Stormblessed Miniatures, and I'm based in a place called Sunderland in the northeast of England. I started painting, let's have a think, maybe about 3.5 to 4 years ago, I think it was, maybe June 21, I think it was. And I got into it. I purchased a game called Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth. I don't know if you're familiar, Josh, but it's a kind of D&D deck building adventure-based game to play with a group of friends. And I got all these miniatures with it that looked excellent, but were unpainted. And I thought, oh, I can't be having this on my table. And I reached out to a couple of people I knew on in Instagram and said, oh, I've got these minis. I want to get them painted. Do you know anyone who'll do it? And one of the guys I spoke to said, oh, yeah, get in touch with such and such. He's a friend of mine. He'll paint them for you. So got in touch with this guy and he says, oh, yeah, send us some money half up front and I'll paint the minis for you. So I sent him what he asked for and dropped all the minis off. And then I waited a month and another month and another, and it went on for quite 6 months or so maybe. And I was like, what is going on here? And I eventually managed to get them back off. To be fair, I think the guy was going through something at the time, but I got them back and he's like, oh, look, it's took us ages. Don't worry about it. Like, don't send us the rest of the money. It's all good. So I got them and I looked at them and I thought, dear me, like, what, what took, like, we're talking like just one layer basic paint, like, nothing how I'd kind of asked for, and I just thought, I could do better than this, and I've got
Mm-hmm.
no basis for thinking that. But and I just thought, right, I stripped some of them back because I thought that some of them were okay, but some of the kind of the enemy kind of generic minis were just shocking. So I stripped them back and started painting there. I found a guy called Sarastro on YouTube who did a kind of play-by-play tutorials on the minis for this game, and just kind of diligently followed everything that he was trying to do. Varying degrees of success in the beginning, shall we say. I was looking the other day in kind of preparation for our chat, Josh, and the uh, the first mini I ever did, it's entertaining to say the least when I have a look at it. I think I'm due a repost of it on my Instagram in a couple of months for kind of my 4 year anniversary.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's out there. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into the mini painting kind of side of things. Painted all the minis up for that game, and then kind of, well, what should I paint next? So I started buying kind of replacement proxy miniatures for some of the characters in the game. So I had like unique orcs, so not all the orcs looked the same mini, they're all individual kind of sculpts. So getting kind of Games Workshop orc minis and other kind of proxy minis online. And then big fan of Brandon Sanderson and the Cosmere, and saw that these kind of Kickstarter thing was going on. I already knew about Brotherwise Games. I've got the Call to Adventure games that they do, the Stormlight Archive Edition, and a couple of other ones. So I was already familiar with them, and I thought, oh, this this is great, exactly what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I kind of thought, well, I'm going to branch out into a separate Instagram page for my kind of personal feed and try and take it a little bit more seriously. And then that's kind of where the name Stormblessed Miniatures came from, because it was all kind of based upon the Stormlight archive, and that was the inspiration for starting the page. And yeah, the name just kind of came to me from there. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's great. That I mean, I like I said, I followed your channel kind of when the Stormlight miniatures started hitting the shelves or like started getting to people. I found your channel right when I kind of started posting my stuff, because I had been posting previously about my Alethi army that I had been building out of proxy models, and then they're like, okay,
I've
here's
seen,
the
yeah.
official minis, and I got so excited. But so tell me, Jack, how did you start your Cosmere journey? Like, when did you first pick up a Brandon Sanderson book?
It'll be in early 2010s, I think, Josh. The first one I read was Mistborn. I've always been a big fantasy genre fan ever since I was younger, and my dad would read to me The Hobbit when I was younger, going to bed to get a chapter of The Hobbit each night, and I kind of branched into Lord of the Rings. And it all kind of grew from there. But I picked up a copy of Mistborn in my local bookstore. I remember looking at it on the shelves and seeing all these Sanderson books, and the covers in the UK are all kind of, I don't know if you've seen them. They're all white covers with a very similar kind of artwork style. So I was thinking, is this one big series? Is this which book do I start with? And then I was eventually, after going in and out of the store a couple of times, was able to deduce that the kind of separate standalone stories. Okay, I'll pick this Mistborn trilogy. Is it the first one? It's talking about what if the Lord Ruler had won? And I'm thinking, is this the first book? Am I missing something here? I don't want to be jumping in the middle of something. But no, I picked the right one, read Mistborn, and thought, wow, that was fantastic. So many twists and stories. Absolutely loved it. And then looked at some of his other stuff and came across the Stormlight archive. Started Way of Kings and was just blown away by the scale of it and the kind of all the various different plot elements that were going on, the different characters. Moved into Words of Radiance, and that was kind of where I left it. Oathbringer wasn't out at that point, and I moved on to reading The Wheel of Time because of that connection with Brandon, who obviously finished the series after Robert Jordan passed. So I was reading Wheel of Time, and one of the guys who I work with saw I was reading Wheel of Time, and he's like, "Oh, you like Wheel of Time? Are you a Brandon Sanderson fan as well?" I was, "Oh yeah. I loved Stormlight Archive and I loved his Mistborn series." He was like, "So do you know that they're all connected?" And I was like, "No, go on." So he started telling me about Dolan's kind of sword master, who was based in another book, and I thought, oh, like this is it. I'm going into the deep end here. So I kind of had to blitz through Wheel of Time, and then went back up and picked up a copy of Elandris, picked up a copy of Wallbreaker, read through them, and then by that point, I think Oathbringer was due to come out, or not long after that, and as it worked out, Brandon was actually doing like a promotional tour for Oathbringer, and I managed to get like tickets to go to see him in one of the local universities, get my copy signed by him in person, and from then on, it's been kind of like the main love of my life in terms of like the literature. I just think it's fantastic. I know he's got some detractors online, but I'd be very much put myself in the fanboy kind of arena for him. It's yeah, Cosmere is life as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I think both of us kind of have that same mentality of we love it so much we decided to post online about it, mixing our miniature hobby with our literature hobby. So we kind of had some technical difficulties there. Got you back online. You mentioned at the end here of that you breezed through the Wheel of Time so you could dig more into the Cosmere. And
Well,
first of all, that's impressive. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a breeze. There was a, have you read Wheel of Time, Josh?
I've read it twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I read it the once, and there was a period, maybe around book 9, I think it was, and I didn't touch it for a couple of months.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just trying to read the full thing back to back was quite an undertaking, and I just kind of lost myself part way, but went back to it and kind of knew that I needed to get through this. This is a classic.
Yes.
And I think it's widely acknowledged that it kind of peaks and troughs within the story, and there was a dip in the middle bit. Um, but I'm glad I finished it, and yeah, kind of got through it, and then was just mind was open to this connection in this Sanderson world, yeah, to his
Yeah.
other stories.
The Cosmere worlds are intense. And I know because I got into Sanderson because of Wheel of Time. So I was reading it I got
Hmm.
through the trough through the middle, and then I hit Sanderson's books at the end, and I was like, who is this guy? Because
Yeah, yeah,
he is like doing so well at wrapping up all these storylines, and just like came in at the end. Anyway, this isn't a Wheel of Time discussion, but that's how I got into Cosmere. So it's kind of cool they both went through there. Um, so kind of thinking about that. So you started miniature painting about 3, maybe coming up on 4 years ago.
coming up 4 years, yeah, yeah, I'd
Yep.
say.
You've been digging deep into the Cosmere for a while now. What were your thoughts I guess, what was your reaction when you saw the Stormlight Miniatures Kickstarter first kick off about 2 years ago?
Oh, I was pretty excited, yeah. Just got this new kind of fledgling hobby of miniature painting. As I said, I was kind of in that space of right, what do I paint next? And noticed that Brother Wise were teaming up with Dragonsteel to release these miniatures, and I was just it was like a dream come true. Indulge in one of my favorite hobbies. Well, two of my favorite hobbies, painting and Cosmere, worlds
Hmm.
combining. Um, Unite them, as Dalinar would have said, and it was
Yeah.
just a kind of match made in heaven. Um, and yeah, I think it's great. Yeah,
Yeah. I know I was super excited when it came in. Because like I said before, I was building my Alethi army, and I was like, "Oh snap! We have like actual real miniatures that are canon."
yeah, yeah.
And so I when I got them, I made my like unboxing video, and I showed the difference between like the size differences. So, what are your thoughts? I know you've talked about this a little bit on Discord. What are your thoughts about like the quality of these minis?
Um, uh, I think the models themselves, so the artwork and the kind of concept, and everything that was created, all the visuals that were the actual minis themselves were based on. I think they're all fantastic. There's a hell of a lot
Yes.
of detail in those images, and it really does capture like the kind of descriptions were given in the books of these characters, and to see them come to life on the screen was fantastic. Yeah, as you said, I've spoken to or mentioned this a couple of times in the Discord, and I do feel that the miniatures probably aren't as good a quality as I would have liked. For a
Hmm.
set that was described as like premium miniatures, I do feel perhaps a little bit let down by the quality at times,
Yeah.
compared to some of the stuff I've painted in the past, which was quite crisp with the details. The Cosmere stuff, I think it can make it a bit of a challenge, or sometimes even a chore. Really, I think when you're looking to paint a miniature and the detail just isn't there, or it faces there's not much definition in the face, makes it very very difficult. Straps on various items of
Yeah.
clothing are either really thick, or kind of bits of detail have just been kind of lost in the overall torso
Yeah.
of the miniature. There's a couple of ones in particular that spring to mind. I found when I painted Shalan, sorry, no, Yasna, she
Hmm.
had like a neckerchief kind of thing on, and there was a bit of a rope and tassel on her shoulder that just doesn't exist on the miniature.
Yeah.
And I've just painted Leshwi, and there's meant to be bits of carapace and stuff, and
Not
it just
there.
wasn't there. Yeah, and so it was a little bit disappointing. And I'm grateful for Brotherwise and for producing these miniatures, but I do wish maybe a different casting process had been used, because it does take the shine off it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would agree on that. It's like when I pulled them out, I mean, I was so excited to get them. I was like, these are fantastic. And then I start looking at them and like,
mhm,
man, this doesn't look like what I
mhm,
saw on the concept art, right? I mean, we have the reference gallery in Discord where you can see the concept art. Like it is
mhm. It's
really good
great. Yeah, it
detail.
looks great. Yeah,
Um, so I'm wondering that, like, I wonder if they'll come out with another round and just like make him just a little bit bulkier
perhaps.
and get that detail or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I so the Army Builder Pack, which came out with the Kickstarter,
Hmm.
as a 3D print downloadable STLs, in the first instance before anything else arrived. I got a friend of mine to print those off, and to be fair, there's a big quality difference in what was 3D printed at home in someone's house, and what was kind of provided as
Yeah.
the main Kickstarter. There's finer edges, and that's the main my main grumble. I'm trying to paint everything um, in an like non-metallic metal style now to just kind of
Yeah.
test myself a little bit, really push those boundaries in terms of developing the skills. And then you come to paint a sword, and you want to get that edge highlight on the edge of the sword, and it's flat. Is it? It's like a square.
A
it,
sharp
it,
blade can take any shape, Jack. Come
it,
on.
it, 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 it can, but come on, you're bludgeoning them to death by that point. I think that's what it felt like trying to paint at them. So some of them were a challenge,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because like I say, it's great that we've got these miniatures,
Yeah.
and obviously there's more to come as well, which the secondary RPG Kickstarter, and maybe see what lessons have been learned there, hopefully. But
Yeah.
yeah,
With that new RPG Kickstarter, they they bundled the minis with the STL file, so you'll get all the minis and then you'll get all the STL files, which I'm
yeah, I
excited
saw that.
for.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you
Hopefully.
able to back that portion of it?
Yeah, yeah. Got a group of friends who are play regularly
Okay.
games with, Magic the Gathering being one of the main ones, but we play the aforementioned Lord of the Rings game,
Hmm.
and we are all, or the vast majority of us are all Cosmere
Wow.
fans. So we all chipped in. Excuse me. Oh, excuse
Bless you.
me. We all chipped in for the RPG, and got
Oh,
like, so
nice.
we went in for like the top tier kind of RPG subscription, and then various different add-ons as well. So we've got
Yeah.
like two sets of the guide books coming, like, well, two sets of like all of the books, because some people wanted their own copies. The Stormlight dice, I think there's like three sets of those coming.
Yeah.
So it came to about $600 and something, I think, in the end, was when we all chipped in for
You
it.
all
So
chipped in.
like, really, really looking forward to getting that when it comes. I've never done any tabletop gaming of that
Yeah.
ilk before. So yeah, that'll be an experience. But yeah, really looking forward to getting those, the actual physical minis from Brotherwise, just to see what the differences are, but also getting the STL files, hopefully a bit ahead of schedule, and getting those printed, and just seeing again what we've got, access to. I believe various different fused forms,
Yep.
radiance, and various other bits and pieces, which is just going to be really cool to paint as well. Not that I'm sitting here saying that I don't have a massive pile of Cosmere shame on my shelf. I don't paint as quick as I would like, or as often as
Yes.
as I would like. But yeah, the more the merrier. They can
The
sit on
more
the
the
shelf, and
merrier. Yeah.
they'll get painted in due course.
Yes. Yeah. I used to have them all on my shelf and then I put them all away that weren't painted. I was like, okay, I'm getting embarrassed that I have this massive shelf full of unpainted minis. But that's like a constant problem of any because I got into the hobby through Warhammer. And so I have massive armor. So I'm used to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this army
yeah,
painting type deal. And so I'm relatively new to like intricate painting of characters, right? I'm used to like batch painting five guys at a
yeah, yeah.
time,
Get it
just
out quick. Yeah, of
pump
course.
them
Yeah.
out. which has been really interesting for me because I started the channel of like, hey, I want to help new miniature painters with the hobby because I'm like, I'm not very good at painting. Like, I'm not Golden Demon level standards or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Um,
not many of us are,
I
unfortunately.
know. It's and so like starting on our Discord, I have the monthly challenges. I'm just like, you know what? Let's just paint minis. That's what we're here to do,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
slowly increment up from there.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's been really good, and even just for myself, those monthly challenges are really forcing me to kind of
Yeah,
crack the whip on my painting, and I must get this finished by the end of the month, otherwise,
you got to get your entry in.
that's it. So this month is a bit of a challenge. The two miniatures dynamic
Yeah,
duos. Yeah, that's going to be tough.
I see them both on my desk right now. They are only primed. That is all they are, and it's halfway through the month. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to actually do this.
yeah. Well, my Dalinar is approaching
Okay,
completion.
good.
I might get a little bit more done on it tonight. See what kind of how I feel after this, because it's getting on a little bit over here
Yeah,
in the UK. So try and get him almost to completion, I think, and then yeah, see where we
yeah.
get to with Navani.
That'll be good. And I think the intent is once you start on Nivani, hopefully this is published and so you can listen to it while you're painting. That's the goal.
Yeah, listen to myself
That's
ramble on. Yeah,
that's the goal here. So let's dig in a little bit further into your painting hobby. Describe like I guess your painting workflow. Like when do you get your painting in? Do you have a dedicated hobby space? Do you have music? What's your workflow like?
yeah. I've got a dedicated hobby space now. I was just painting on the desk in my office
Hmm.
where I work as well, but the space was a little bit cramped. So I've recently kind of revamped the room and stuff, and got like a much larger, longer desk and into a corner desk as well. And I use the corner desk as kind of my painting space now. I've got paints either side of me, a nice big light overhead
Hmm.
as well, and a couple of display shelves in there as well. I got all that from IKEA actually, and it's absolutely perfect. I wish I'd done it sooner. It
Yeah.
does make a big difference having just everything within easy reach and plenty of desk space to spread out. In terms of a routine, it's difficult, Josh. We were saying before the recording started, we've both got young children, and having to plan painting sessions around them, and then family. I'm married, so I like to spend time
Hmm.
with my wife and have various other uh, hobbies that take up time as well. So I maybe get 1, 2 sessions of painting in a week for maybe a couple of hours in each session.
Yeah.
Um, you just got to juggle it around, haven't you? Some weeks are
Yeah.
more, some weeks I might not even pick up the paintbrush, unfortunately. Um, which is why I say I would love to paint a lot more than what I do,
Yeah.
but
I
it's just not
think,
possible.
yeah, I think we're all in that same boat of we wish we could paint more often. And I think your point about hey having a dedicated space like really helps you be able to just sit down and start painting. Like if you can remove the barrier to entry, you can get back in and paint a lot
Yeah,
faster, and then that gets you back in the hobby. But I'm right there with you. Like you said, I've got 3 young kids at home, and there's no way I'm painting during the day because they'd be in here going crazy. I mean, I got work that I have to do during the day, and so my painting sessions are like 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock are like my only times of day.
same. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exactly what I tend to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Um, yeah. So can tell me more about right now you kind of mentioned that you're working on Dalinar and Navani for the Marches monthly challenge, the
Yeah,
dynamic
yeah.
duos. Um, and one thing that I've been really impressed with your Instagram page is your ability to take photos of your miniatures. So tell us about how you take those photos and that your process there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, Josh, and I appreciate you saying that, because one of my main bugbears about my miniatures is actually taking the photos
Okay.
themselves. It's not something I enjoy. I always feel that kind of, as most people probably do when they look at their miniatures, you finish painting and you think, oh, yeah, that looks great. And then you put it down and you set up your camera, you take your photo, and you go, oh, really?
Every time,
It
Jack.
just blows up every kind of imperfection, and then getting the lighting right and etc. is difficult. And I've gone through various kind of methods of taking photographs. I invested in a light box to
Hmm.
kind of ensure I had consistent lighting. But what I found when I was using that was that it was overexposing my miniatures at times, even on like the kind of dimmest light setting with a soft kind of like filter over the lamp. I
Hmm.
still felt it was overexposing, and well, I'm sat in my kitchen now, and we've got a really big bifold door behind me, and another big window over to that side, and then a skylight at the top, so we get some really good natural kind of daylight in the kitchen. And recently, I found that if I use my kind of light box just to shelter all kind of outside light, other than that, that's directly facing the miniature,
Okay.
that really kind of helps just tone down the exposure levels, but really ensures that you've got that brightness at the front of the miniature, using the natural daylight, like the clouds, to filter it.
Hmm.
Creates quite a nice lighting effect. And then just use my phone, standard iPhone. Don't use any fancy kind of camera app or anything, just a standard app. I set it up on a tripod, and then just fiddle about with the various different levels of zoom and moving the camera depending on the miniature to get the best picture I can. I would say I've mentioned exposure and controlling like the kind of natural light. It does work well if you lower the exposure manually as well when you take the
Hmm.
photograph, I've found, and then boost it back up after you've taken the photograph. Really just helps balance out some of those values in the photo. I've recently reposted the Leshwe
Yeah.
miniature. I used the exact setup on the original photo that I've just described. But it was uncommonly for the UK. We had some really nice weather when I took that photo. It was very, very sunny for here. And in my hurry, I didn't really think about that. Took the photo, uploaded it
Yeah.
to my Instagram. And then it was like maybe a week later, I was looking at it. I just thought, "Oh, I'm just not happy with that. I've got better photos of the miniature since then in better lighting conditions. So I just had to re-upload it because
Do it.
I think it does make a difference. The lighting is key, really,
Yeah.
and it's one of the most difficult things to kind of get right. But if you do get it right, it makes all the difference to the end
I
result.
would agree. I'm right there with you where I like despise taking pictures of my minis. I'm like, I need to do this so I can create like a thumbnail or so I can post it on Instagram. But anytime I take a picture, I'm like, that looks awful. Like
Yeah,
I love how they look right there, but not when they're up close. And I
yeah,
think it was one of the guys on Discord, Ed 109. He's like, it's like it adds 5 pounds in a picture or something. It's so true in miniature painting. Once you take a
yeah.
picture of it, like the quality just like drops. It's like,
It
well,
does. Yeah. I see some people on Instagram that take these photos of their miniatures, and I'm just thinking, how how have they got it to look so good
yeah, yeah,
um, on such a small thing, and then take a photograph of it and blow it up kind of so much, and it still looks amazing. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. It's definitely another skill set, right? I mean, you actually have to paint the miniature, then you have to take a good picture of it, and then depending on managing your social media, making sure you post it appropriately, that kind of stuff. Lots of stuff go into this.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me, um, you mentioned that you got an airbrush for Christmas.
Mhm.
How is that? Have you been able to bust it out and start using it?
Yeah, with not much success, to be perfectly honest with you. So watched a few videos, tutorials on how to do it, but didn't fully appreciate how difficult it actually is to operate.
Huh.
A dual trigger kind of airbrush. So I don't know if you've used one in
I don't have one now.
before, just so you kind of push down with your finger controls the flow of air, and then pulling the trigger back introduces the paint
Hmm.
to the air, and it's just a very fine line between a little bit of paint and just like full splurge. So I've base coated the shard plate Caledon miniature.
Yeah.
It took a few coats. I don't think I had the right kind of consistency of paint. It's obviously a lot thinner
Yeah.
paint than what you would use for a brush work.
Because it's specific for airbrushes, right?
Yeah. Well, I use normal acrylics, but I bought
Oh,
some
okay.
Vallejo thinner
Yeah.
and flow improver as well. So I kind of mixed a combination of those into the paint. Probably maybe didn't have the right kind of ratios, but there's only one way to learn, isn't there?
That's right.
Because my intention had been to use it for the marbling effect on Leshwi.
Yeah.
And what I proposed doing with it just did not work at all. So it was that was process of painting Leshwi was just to kind of off the cuff,
Yeah.
see what happens, and yeah, so I didn't end up using the airbrush for that. So no, not much experience with it yet. I do intend to definitely put it into practice more. I've got one of my friends paints as well.
Hmm.
He uses an airbrush for base coating all of his miniatures and bits and pieces as well. He's into Warhammer, similar to yourself.
Yeah.
So he's volunteered to come around and give me a few pointers and just see what we can do. So maybe at some point in the future, I'll get back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have an airbrush yet. And honestly, my biggest setback from getting into airbrushing is, again, with young kids at home, I don't really have like a shop or anywhere. Like, I know you have to have some ventilation or something, like some hood type stuff. Do you deal with that?
Yeah, I haven't got anything like that yet, to be honest
Mm.
with you. So my friend did recommend a ventilator kind of
Yeah.
mask, just to protect yourself. And I do intend on getting one when I get a little bit more serious about using it. But like I say, I use it so little at the moment. I
Yeah.
figured, if I'm using it for 20 minutes or so just to test it out, I'm probably not going to do too much damage to myself or the room.
Right. Right.
So yeah, the intention is at some point I will end up investing in a proper kind of setup. But for now, until I'm a lot better with it
Yeah.
or more familiar with it, it's just so it's another thing to get you get around to practicing and purchasing. Unfortunately,
Yeah, yeah, it's like I have enough to worry about with just my paintbrush. But the
yeah,
the reason I want the airbrush is so that I can do really good glow effect. Like,
hey, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted it for. That's
yeah,
so my plan was, or it still is, but
yeah,
it's probably on the back burner was for the shard plate Caledon. Obviously, he's got the bridge
the
4
glyph. Yeah,
on his on the chest, and was to really get a good glow effect from that. And then I'm now revising those thoughts when I've realized how hard it is to actually get that kind of precision and
yeah,
level of like control with the level of paint that comes out of the thing. Yeah, that might be a little bit way off in the future.
yeah. Because I think any kind of shard plate really has potential for some sweet effects. Because I've
Yeah,
seen it on like Space Marines with Warhammer painters, like really good Warhammer painters. I'm like, if you just get some shard bearers, like you could like paint it so well because of their airbrush control. Like I made my videos of my glowing shard plate, but it's like I look at it now, I'm like, it's not good. Like with the brush, it is
yeah,
really hard to do.
it's tough. Yeah, yeah. But practice makes perfect, as
Yeah.
they say, and I still think you can get some good effects with a brush. It's just a damn sight
It
easier
takes a long
using the
time.
airbrush, isn't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So we'll see. I might have a challenge coming up where we have to do glow effects. So that will be your challenge to actually do Kaladin with the airbrush.
All right, thank you. Give you a few months.
I'll give you a few months. I'll give you a few months. So I have one more question about the hobby, and then we'll jump into a few Cosmere questions. So based on your first experience with commissioning your minis, your Lord of the Rings minis, do you think you'll ever offer to commission paint for other people? You have a gaming group. Would you paint their minis for them? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, for friends, certainly. On the understanding that it might take some time, as we've already said. You'll not get it straight away. I have painted one miniature for a friend.
Mhm.
It was the Mandalorian miniature.
Oh, that one
Yeah,
is
that was.
really good. Very
Yeah,
good.
thank you. So that was it was slightly bigger than the these Stormlight miniatures were,
Yeah.
but that was a one for a friend. The guy who does all of my kind of 3D printing.
Yeah.
Um, I said I would do that one for him, and yeah, I would certainly maybe think about it in the future. I think there's a lot of saturation in that market for kind of commission painting,
Hmm.
and once you take that step, there's a whole lot more pressure on yourself, isn't there?
Yeah.
Doing it for someone else. it's all right if you've painted it for yourself and it turns out rubbish, but if it's for someone else, then yeah, you're in trouble, aren't you? So
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I've I've like dabbled with the idea of like, could I do commission painting? But then I look at my shelf of shame with all my armies that haven't been painted
this
yet,
is
and like,
it.
I can't even paint my own minis. Like, what?
That's it. I mean, I would, a lot of like the top level guys out there, they do it day in, day out, and they've got the time to dedicate it. We've got, as we've already said, various
Yeah,
other things
small
going
time.
on, small windows, and ultimately you've bought those miniatures for yourself. You wanted them painted, and
Yeah,
can you really let them sit there and linger?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And maybe with commission painting, it might take the relaxingness out of it because I like painting because it's so relaxing. And it feels really good after I'm done
Mhm.
with the session. I'm like, man, that was awesome. I loved it. But commission painting seems like it would add this layer of stress that I don't want to rope into my hobby.
Yeah, of course. Takes the fun away,
Yeah.
or I imagine it could certainly do so.
Yeah. Maybe we'll both try. I have painted for other people. I really enjoyed doing that. Where like I knew I was going to give this to someone else free of
Yeah,
charge.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
love
of
doing that.
course.
It was awesome. Um, okay, so you mentioned that you have a gaming group who's Cosmere fans, and you play
Yeah.
games together. You went in on the Cosmere RPG Kickstarter. Um, give us like, have you done any RPGs before? Like, what are your thoughts on this upcoming RPG?
No, never done any tabletop
Hmm.
RPGs kind of thing. So the Lord of the Rings game I mentioned right at the start of our chat. So that was kind of got a little bit of an element of an RPG to it, but it's much more of a deck building kind of adventure um, game. So very new to the
Hmm.
RPG world in that sense. A couple of the guys have done some D&D kind of experiences before, so they're a little bit more au fait with everything that goes on. One of them's volunteered to be the games master
Okay.
for our group. So yeah, we'll just kind of approach it on the fly and see how it goes. We're very excited to give it a
Yeah.
go. I had hoped when I saw they were developing, otherwise we're developing some sort of game, and I know we've already spoke about Warhammer. I had hoped it was going to be some kind
Oh,
of Cosmere or at least Stormlight, kind of Warhammer-esque game.
yeah.
I just imagine armies of Alethi, the 10 High Princedoms, or Parshendi on the Shattered Plains, and then introducing
Nice.
Fused, etc. Could have really been excellent. But they
Yeah.
went down the RPG route, and I'm sure that will be good as well.
Yeah. I
So
think
fingers crossed.
yeah, the RPG route it makes sense with what I know of Brandon, right? I'll follow Brandon on his YouTube channel and like
Mhm.
he loves that stuff. He does RPGs, he does Magic the Gathering. Um, I don't see him as like a war gamer, and so like I just don't know when we'll have a Stormlight war game. Like
Yeah,
I'm with you. I would love it. Like I'm already making a my Thrill Alethi army. I just primed and based 40
nice.
guys. I'm gonna like paint to match Dalinar what I did with the Blackthorn. Um, and that's kind of like my I guess what drives me forward is like I want to play a Stormlight army on the tabletop, so I'll bring it to like a Warhammer game and
Yeah.
like act like I was the Alethi and do that kind of strategy stuff. So we'll see. I know something's in the works with Brotherwise with um, it's more of a board game with little miniatures. I don't think it's a
Yeah,
full out war game.
yeah. I've seen they've got a couple of things going on, haven't they? There's shards of creation.
Mm.
I'm not sure exactly what kind of game that's going to be. And then yeah, this heroic. Is it heroic Stormlight or
I think it
something?
was like Epic Stormlight or
Yeah,
like
epic.
True
That might be it.
Desolation, something like that.
Yes, yes, that's it. True. Yeah. So we'll see. Well, that should be good. And actually, speaking of Brotherwise and Cosmere games, I
Mm.
actually played the Mistborn deck building game for the
Oh
first
yeah.
time last night. My
How
wife and
was
I
that?
sat down to play that. It was a slog to be. There's a lot going on, a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it was tough,
Yeah.
but it was just an experiment. We didn't really kind of dedicate it ourselves to it as we perhaps would have done otherwise. It was just a
Yeah.
play and see, and yeah, we got well and truly beat down by the Lord Ruler.
The Lord Ruler destroyed you. I
Yeah,
I haven't played it yet. I have a lot of experience doing deck building games. And I kind of watched some reviews of the Mistborn deck builder game, and they said it was a great deck builder, but it has a lot of crunchiness. Like it's
yeah.
an
Sorry, I'm just
advanced
going
deck
to
builder. Um,
check the battery.
no, you're good. And so that I hope to get the game at some point, but we'll
Yeah, I would
see.
recommend it. I think they're planning on some expansions for it as well, based on
Mm,
kind of the second and third books of the first era of Mistborn, perhaps. And I
yeah,
don't know if so. Yeah, there's plenty of replay value, I think, in it. Co-op mode, solo mode, which is essentially the same, and then a multiplayer kind of PvP aspect to it as well.
yeah.
So
Do
yeah, I
you
enjoyed it.
Would you foresee them creating miniatures? Well, I guess we know that they're going to do some kind of Mistborn miniatures with the Cosmere RPG. So I guess that's coming down the pipe, and I think you could probably use them in the deck building game if you want to like representative of your
Yeah,
character. What are your thoughts on like it? I guess if you could wave a magic wand and get a new set of Cosmere miniatures in your hands right now, who would be included? I know we had this kind of conversation before, but what would you include in there?
well, I think if we're talking strictly speaking for Stormlight, then a full set of heralds would
Yeah.
be good. We've got obviously Talon and Nail. I think
Hmm.
they're the only two that were released with the Kickstarter. So to get the other eight,
That would be cool.
nine with no spoilers, um, would be good. I was branching it out a little bit to kind of wider Cosmere. I've actually already got a couple of Mistborn miniatures
Yeah, I saw those.
from Crafty Games. Did a House War, Mistborn House War game and expansion, Siege of Luthadel, and we got you got Vin, Kelsier, an Inquisitor, and a Colossus miniature as well. So maybe something official for those guys would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wax and Wayne as well, I think would be
Oh,
interesting. Yeah. Wayne in various different outfits, disguises, etc. Would be a fun set to paint, I think.
oh yeah.
Um, yeah, trying to think what else would be good. To be honest, I would pretty much take anything,
I know, right? Anything right
and I
now.
think I think that is the plan. And obviously, the RPG is going to be Cosmere wide. Hopefully, they continue to produce miniatures to go along with the various campaign settings, etc. So, hopefully, we get the wish
Yeah.
granted in the not too
Yeah.
distant future.
I kind of my pie in the sky, or like one day I would love to see a war game where you can pitch different Cosmere planet armies against each other. So it's
Yeah, oh yeah,
like you have
that would be
Kolos versus the
sick.
Alethi. It's like
Yeah,
what would happen, you know? It's like, or
yeah,
even I had this thought of in Warhammer you have the Stormcast Eternals, right? Which
hmm
are like the fantasy space marines. I had this thought of if you paint them like granite, it could be like the statues from Warbreaker. Do you remember that
yes,
one
yeah,
where
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
make
yeah.
the breaths into the
Yeah,
statues, make a
yeah,
statue army, like lifeless army? I guess that's what they would be. But
yes, that was it. Yeah, no, that would be cool. That would be a
yeah,
good take on it as well. Look pretty cool on the table.
yeah. Because I mean, I have like this running list of armies that I want to make, and that's one of them. Of like, okay, this Stormcast army that's
Yeah,
lifeless. That'd be interesting.
an unlimited list and only limited time, unfortunately, to get it all
Yes,
done.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so here's one of my last questions for you here, Jack. Is if you could wave a magic, I guess we kind of already talked about this. So let me go to this question. Of all the Cosmere books, you mentioned kind of walks through your story of how you start with Mistborn, went to Stormlight, then finished up the rest of the Cosmere. Which one is your favorite, or which ones are your favorite, and why?
Um, Series as a whole, no surprises. Stormlight,
Yes,
and if I've got to pick one from there, Words of Radiance. I
yes,
think that is for me the kind of pinnacle of Brandon's writing.
yeah,
The kind of the drama, the twists and turns, and just the sheer
epicness of those moments. You know, if I was to pinpoint a couple of moments from the Stormlight series as a whole, I think the kind of top ones for me would be the duel in the arena with with Kaladin coming in to help Adolin. I think it just was superb. And then again, not wanting to spoil things for anyone, but the whole kind of Sanderlanche at the end,
Oh yeah.
and the flight across the shattered plains to get to the battle at the end. It's just kind of, yeah, that for me, that is the pinnacle of the series. I know other books in the series have some good moments as well, but yeah, the Words of Radiance, hands down, for me is top notch. How about you?
I would agree on that. I feel like it's Way of Kings was the first punch, and then the second punch was Words of Radiance, right? It just
Yeah,
like set it up so well.
it
And
did.
100% love those because those were like besides the Wheel of Time, right? That was my first intro into Sanderson
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
the Stormlight Archive. So,
Oh, yeah,
um,
big undertaking for
yeah,
first one.
yeah. But I mean, coming out of Wheel of Time, I was like, oh, two,
Yeah.
3 books, that's nothing.
Yeah, fair. Not quite 13.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think definitely Stormlight for sure. And then I actually really did enjoy Tress of the Emerald Sea. Like
Yeah, it was different.
it's like totally flipped of what he usually does. I mean that's kind of why I made that diorama back there was
Yeah, yeah, I love
I
that.
loved it. And I was like, this scene just like stuck in my mind. I was like, I have to build it. And so I went out and built it.
Yeah, and you've done a great job with it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I would love to do something like that myself, but never quite had
Yeah.
the inspiration yet. So maybe one day.
It was a ton of fun making that. I mean, it
Yeah,
took me forever, but I had a lot of
worth
fun.
it. Worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really want to get into is getting these minis into more dioramas. And so I just painted Zeth, right, the assassin in white. And one of my ideas is to create kind of a book nook
Oh, nice.
of him
Yeah.
like walking through Kolinar's palace and be like kind of like light him up with some LEDs. We'll see if I ever get to it, but
Yeah,
I'd
that
love to
looked
have a
great.
book
Yeah,
nook
yeah.
to put on my shelf in between some of these books.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'll keep an eye out for
Yes, maybe it'll be one of the monthly challenges is to make a diorama. So
it. Yeah. Push us all to new things. Yeah, I like
yes,
it.
that's what we're trying to do. Um, well, good. I think we've been chatting for a while here, Jack. I appreciate your time this evening, and maybe you'll have some time to go back and get some painting in. Maybe
Perhaps maybe
any
squeeze an
last
hour in.
minute, yeah, any last minute things you want to chat about before I close out?
No, I think yeah, we've covered quite a bit there, Josh. Yeah, it's been a good chat. Hopefully, everyone finds it interesting. And yeah, thanks for reaching out.
I appreciate your input on the Discord server. You're very active on there, helping people feel welcome, which I love. Building this community, it's very niche, right? Cosmere miniatures, very
Yeah,
small
yeah, it's a
community,
very small bit. Yeah, yeah.
but we're strong. We're a strong
We're
community.
strong and we're growing. There's always new people joining as
Yeah,
well, which is nice. Yeah,
it's really fun
so
to see.
yeah.
So for people listening in, where can they find more of your work and check your stuff out?
Yeah, just on Instagram. Stormblessed Miniatures is the handle. I post semi regularly on there. I say I don't paint as much as I would, which means I don't post as much as I would like. But I'm trying to post more. So
We
yeah,
all are.
if anyone wants to throw me a follow or whatever, much appreciated. Yeah,
That's good. Great. Well, thanks, Jack. I'll end the recording here